is Tuesday, October 15th, 9 p.m. in the DMV.
And 6 p.m. here in Los Angeles. I'm Jack Armstrong.
And I'm Sam Giacinto, and you're listening to Tech Talk Live. Welcome to the show. A chat or call in with your tech news. We're on X, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen.
And don't forget, visit our website, techtalklive.xyz. You can also follow the show and join our mailing list there. Lots of talk. Lots of tech to talk about. That's a tongue twister, all right. We've got some cool things to talk about with the iPad mini, iPhone SE, and of course, just a few days ago, Elon's party with the robots and
the Robo rock party. Absolutely.
Robo rockets and of course Starship as well. So lots to dig into.
I don't know how much you've seen about the iPad mini announcement. That was earlier today, or could have been yesterday. I just saw a few brief comparisons. I don't know if it was one of those press release announcements or something a little bit more heavy duty, but quite a bit has been changed. The basics in maybe 10 seconds. We have a chip that's 2 generations newer, double the RAM, double the base storage, and a few quality of life upgrades, so Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and USB-C.
I'm looking at it now. I hadn't seen it. Apple was kind of neglecting the iPad mini, I would say. Of course, we got some new colors. We have
the
and
liquid 2 new colors if you're into the color thing.
And also 500 nits peak brightness. So we've got P3 wide color, true tone. I'm just looking at the website now. So anyone who scrolls down, of course, will also welcome Apple Intelligence, of course. I think Apple Intelligence and the processor, that's about it for the upgrades, it looks like here. You can pre-order it now. We've got finishes blue, purple, starlight, and space gray. They still are offering a 128 gigabyte model. I guess that's just to keep prices down and keep it competitive. But
that's up from the 64 gigabyte base model. Going back to, they doubled the storage, and kind of the asterisk with at least Apple Intelligence is that it appears as though really any device that is, quote unquote, built for it, has 8 gigabytes of RAM. So that's up from 4 in the previous model. This is something that Apple doesn't actively disclose. So I'll need to verify sources on that. But they're not very quick to brag or really say anything about the amount of RAM in their devices. But it seems as though 8 gigabytes is kind of that floor minimum for supporting Apple Intelligence between, the MacBooks and the iPhones and now the iPad.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is interesting. Did you see a benchmark for this?
This will be using the A17 Pro. So we've seen that before. It's a very widely tested and adopted chip. So it's not. We could look at the 15 Pro on that sort of angle of things, to kind of get an idea of what we're looking at in terms of performance. Obviously a very potent chip. This will be, more or less. I'm kind of, don't quote me on
Sam,
this,
in
but
terms
the
of
M2 architecture.
Well, in terms of RAM, what makes you say that about the RAM, though?
I've seen at least on X, people kind of diving into it. Obviously, it's impossible to verify, I guess, at this point. Again, have to verify my sources, so full disclaimer on that one. But it appears as though, at least between the iPhones, even the base iPhone 16, having that extra RAM to support the Apple Intelligence models running locally on the device.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that'll be interesting to see, of course, yeah, when it comes out, because Apple, I think a big part of running AI, we're so used to ChatGPT Plus running in the cloud. So with Apple Intelligence, it seems like we're going to see a difference there with things running locally on the device for a lot of tasks. I think obviously, if you ask it a question that needs current information, it's going to look that up. But yeah, really cool. A17 Pro, and what's interesting now when you look at the entire iPad lineup, of course, they haven't updated the iPad, the regular iPad. So you can see that
the 10th gen iPad, right? Yeah.
Yep. The iPad Air and iPad Pro have Apple Intelligence, an M2 and an M4 chip. But yeah, we still got the A14 Bionic in that. Yeah, the 10th generation iPad, just the regular iPad. So, I mean, I don't know. The iPad Mini speaks to a unique individual as well. I feel like it's a very small format. I mean, more like a Kindle, but it's like an iPad. But it's like, it's interesting for, if you don't want the bigger one, you want the smaller screen, but you still want to, it's a good device. I mean, I actually have the Mini. I've had it for a while and I love it. I mean, but it hasn't been updated for years. So this is the first update we've seen to it.
No, yeah, and kind of on that note too, a very interesting addition. Apparently, Apple Pencil support as well. So that's kind of been, sadly lacking.
Sam, the Minis actually had the Apple Pencil. I've had
really?
no problem with the, yeah.
So they support the Gen 2 Apple Pencil then.
Well,
or
I don't know.
Is it the Gen 1?
I'm pretty sure it's the second
Gen 2 support. Oh, really? Huh.
It's the magnetic one that just goes right on the device. Yeah, I mean, I've had no problem with the pencil going between the iPad Pro and the iPad Mini. So,
well, no, I hate to be so misinformed on this. I mean, I have not owned an iPad, so maybe I just have to get one for the sake of relearning it again.
You should. I mean, it's a neat device. I gotta say though, the second gen iPencil, that's the magnetic one, right? We're talking about the right thing, I hope.
Yeah, no, that's correct. I mean, it's the wireless charging, magnetic, kind of taps on the side. Whereas the first gen Apple Pencil is kind of the ridiculous lightning, plugs in the bottom.
Oh yeah.
Kind of a travesty of design. I mean, people have compared it to, the magic mouse that needs to be flipped over to charge.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's
it's a little silly. That's true. Yeah. Well, we have had the Apple Pencil 2 support on the Mini that's getting replaced now. I think. Yeah, so I think that's about the same. So, I mean, I think it's mainly just performance. I mean, I do think if you run a lot of apps, you do notice a little bit of a slowdown. That's for sure. The more apps you're running, really. So,
well, that's also something too where the increased RAM will help out with that. I mean, and it's something. I mean, and again, we can only assume the exact value until there's a teardown. But it appears that the Apple Intelligence devices have had 8 gigabytes as kind of the going standard for that. So, how will that be used? Possibly for the playground. We saw the image playground, demonstrated at least at the iPhone event. something coming in the spring of next year. A lot of these things are still sort of pending. So, Apple hasn't really quite had a product launch that's this sort of, promised feature versus live on day one. We kind of saw it in the past with, portrait lighting and photographic styles, and deep fusion. That's what it was. If there's anybody who remembers the iPhone 10 launch, deep fusion was something that was advertised. No one really quite knew what it was or whether it was just a bunch of marketing gobbledygook. But that was something that, it's hard to keep track of all the things that are promised, but I believe it was implemented at some point. But that was just kind of another example of, promise now, deliver later. And it could be like AirPower. I mean, do you remember that? Surprise, surprise.
I don't.
That never came. So, I mean, you really never know. I mean, but at least with AirPower, it made a little bit more sense because you can't really out-engineer the laws of physics. So,
yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean, they had their work cut out for them there, at least on that aspect of it.
So I want to know who we even think this is for, this mini iPad. So like I've seen the ticket scanner people at certain like small theater venues sometimes use iPad minis. I guess that's an upgrade from the iPod touches, but I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're a reader and you'd like a Kindle, but you kind of sometimes want the power and the entertainment side of the iPad, I mean, I guess that's probably a good space for the mini iPad. Can you think of any other people who are listening that might consider, should they get this new mini?
I mean, if you were going to buy it, it's obviously a very nice upgrade. Again, I mean, this is something I do want to give Apple credit for. The base price is supposedly unchanged at $499, so we won't see a price increase. But yeah, we have a lot of these, quality of life upgrades. We have something that's 2 generations newer in terms of the chip. We have the increased memory. We have the, double base storage size. So, despite all the flack, and I saw Apple getting, a little bit of it because it's the same design, right? Some of that's deserved, but I mean, they are really at least, giving you a lot in terms of quality of life, for the same price. And at this point, inflation aside, it's like it's more or less the same price. I mean, if anything, it's a little less, but not won't get into that whole debate. But it's just sort of, they are giving you a more complete package. So if you were considering an iPad mini, I mean, definitely, give it a go. If it's not something that's immediately needed, perhaps around Christmas we may see a discount or two. I mean, it's usually within 6 months of the release, you can catch it on sale somewhere. Or if you don't even need it, if you don't really care, the previous generation is something where you can you can definitely get, you can score a great deal on the previous generation iPad minis. So, I mean, as far as the target consumer, I don't really know, honestly. I mean, the iPhone mini was discontinued for lack of sales, apparently. So I don't quite understand, necessarily, in terms of, who is this really for? Is it even selling well? Like, are they going to continue the segment? I mean, I'm just thankful that we have it, even though I guess the iPad mini is not necessarily a mini device. It's just sort of the smallest iPad relatively, or well, absolutely speaking, you know, I mean, it's still a relatively large device. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, no, I think if you've been waiting for an iPad Mini, now's the time. Apple does not update these every year, so definitely good for a few years. So yeah, it's good. I mean, I feel like it's a nice form factor for an iPad, and it's kind of a mix between in between an iPhone. You can consume more content, but the screen isn't as big. So yeah, it's a good device, really a nice device, and so yeah, iPad Mini upgrades. Lots to look forward to when this comes out, of course, with Apple Intelligence. Also, the iPhone SE 4. So, kind of like the iPad Mini, right? We've got a new SE. So the SE has been popular. It seems like it's the colors. People seem to like the colors.
well, I mean, that is one aspect. I mean, obviously, I mean, a whole slew of upgrades are planned. So again, just kind of a short recap. You know, now we're sort of stepping into the realm of speculation with that, but a 499 price point, so slightly up from where we're at now. I believe 429. But you do get a fair. I mean, you know, and again, for a budget phone, it's pretty funny to even be, you know, saying, you know, $500. But for Apple, you know, this is the cheapest option per se. But you are getting an OLED screen and Face ID. I think that will be kind of the biggest change. So essentially, all of the, you know, changes again introduced with the iPhone 10 in terms of design. Because keep in mind, you know, why are we talking about a phone released, you know, 7+ years ago at this point? Well, I mean, the SE sort of shares the body of the iPhone 8, which came out at the same event. So we're sort of, you know, taking the cutting edge from 7 years ago in the iPhone world and finally applying it to the entire lineup. So we'll kind of have a cohesive, you know, no more home button, you know, swipe and Face ID experience, for better or worse. Um, you know, so that's
Yeah.
the biggest change will be to the, you know, overall appearance. Supposedly, it will receive the hardware to support Apple Intelligence. Whether that means a full 8 GB of RAM or otherwise, uh, you know, we'll kind of have to see. Again, I mean, it's it's really hard to tell or really make anything concrete regarding Apple Intelligence. Um, and then the USB-C port. So, you know, kind of completing Apple's um, transition for its entire phone lineup.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I think believe this new one starts at 429, Sam. They might be lowering that a little bit. Maybe they're cutting corners. It seems like the dominant, so obviously, not everyone wants the Pro Max series phones. I feel like it's not
Yeah,
budget friendly. Obviously, this is more of a mid-range smartphone. It might have the 500. I think. I feel like if Apple was smart, they would keep it under $500. I feel like they should keep it closer to 450. If right now it's what 429 for an
I believe
iPhone
it's
SE.
429. Yeah,
I mean,
I
maybe
mean
they
it.
push it to.
Well, the thing is, you're probably right. You know, obviously for a budget phone and people who are price sensitive, you know, it's, you know, again, is 499 going to be stomachable? You know, maybe. Um, but the issue is sort of with that is, well, you know, Apple, at least on the hardware side of things, is adding quite a bit. I mean, between the OLED screen, the new chip, the increased RAM, and even down to the USB-C port. I mean, these, the raw hardware cost, probably $30 to $40, and it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you sell a few million of these, something is, I mean, it's, of course, Apple has to make a little something on the top. So if you're already at 429, $40 more puts you at 469, and $30 of profit. Like, why the heck not? And I'm sure there's other things too. I mean, the modem obviously is going to be a little more expensive. I mean, so it's probably not, complete profit of $30, but just kind of spitballing. It's something that is something to think about. I mean, they are adding $40 to $60 maybe. I'll round up of additional hardware. So I think that's kind of where they got their $499. Obviously, a lot of psychological value in keeping it under 500. I think that's that is a hard line for a lot of people.
Well, and also don't forget Apple's really transitioned into selling services. I feel like they're willing to sell you a phone for, maybe they'll keep the 429, knowing that, hey, maybe they can get more people into the Apple ecosystem to then buy an Apple Watch, or to then buy. I mean, I feel like if Apple was smart, they are they should be thinking about these things. And also, it's worth noting, also an 8 GB of RAM rumor, but also possibly twice the size battery of the current generation. So it could be a real powerful, I guess budget or entry level. Or what should we call this? Entry level phone? I mean, lower level. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to sound condescending, but for an iPhone, I feel like 400.
Well, no, I mean that's
definitely
what Apple's positioning it as, right? I mean, it's tough, but you're absolutely right in saying that, is that they do try and position things like that, for better or worse, right, to make an extra buck. Or I mean, because obviously they would prefer you buy a higher end phone, because they do make a little bit more margin. But I think, again, as you said, with the services, it's not quite as important, as far as exactly, it's, you still make a huge margin on any service you sell, regardless of whether it's the budget phone or not. But there's still, again, at least enough of a carrot for them to sort of be like, well, hey, you don't want the budget phone now, do you? Right? I mean, you want the iPhone 16. It's like, because why not? I mean, again, like, why not?
Well, I mean, don't forget, not everyone's a power user. I mean, I feel like if you're a power user, you naturally gravitate. I think Apple really needs to strategically widen their reach with everything that they're doing. I mean, I really feel like that, because if you're not going to widen, your reach with this, then you're gonna. I mean, in other countries, especially, less and less people are going to, want to support, or get involved with the Apple ecosystem, because there are other alternatives. Even we covered on the show a few months ago, we covered the CMF phone, and from Nothing. I mean, Nothing. They're doing some really cool.
Interesting. Yeah.
And that's $200, and it's a nice Android phone. I mean, it's simple. You can custom. I mean, I think so. If Apple be smart to keep their price the same, or I mean, God, I say lower, maybe even $399. I mean, gosh, I mean, if they can do it to get more people in. I mean, don't forget the Indian market's huge, the Chinese market's huge, And yeah, $500 is a lot, especially to non-Americans who don't have the luxury of living in the United States. With the luxuries that we have here. So I feel like it's a powerful piece of technology that should be coming soon. I don't believe there's a date yet though, which is kind of interesting. Do we have a date? Have you heard of any dates for the iPhone SE 4?
Don't quote me on this. I mean, I will confirm it right now. But I believe spring of next year.
It looks like
next. Yeah, I guess most people are saying early 2025. That's kind of been. I mean, at least from the first and third generations, both of those launched in March. They're going to give a time frame ideal, but Apple's never been known to follow, I don't know, anything in particular, so it's a sort of spring 2025, more or less. And it's supposedly going to support Apple Intelligence. But I guess Q1 2025 has been the whispers that seem to be corroborated by multiple sources. So. Oh, and another big change. We will be getting the 48 megapixel rear sensor as well. So to kind of add to that material cost, so that's a huge upgrade from the sensor in there right now, the 12 megapixel sensor that's kind of been around for a while. So this is sort of going to more or less share, sort of the updated, I believe it's the Sony, I don't know if it's the IX904, but it's the Sony sensor that's the main sensor of the iPhone 16 and iPhone 16 Pro. So it is a single camera, but supposedly, rumor has it will be using either the sensor from the 15 or the slightly updated one in the 16.
Yeah.
So again, it's, and as you said, I mean, segmentation's a big, a big question, right? I mean, if they keep increasing the price of the SE, where does that kind of leave the base model of the market? But I think that's also something where I guess they're banking on, sort of having, more features for a slightly higher price as being a strategy that will pay off.
Yeah.
So,
well, Apple, I think they're just trying to preserve it seems like their premium brand. And they don't want to, do this for super cheap. So, I mean, hey, they have the right to charge what they want to charge. So, anyway, good stuff. Good stuff. Should we move on to the Tesla and the Robo taxi, Robo van, and robot event, the We Robot event?
Yeah, a lot to talk about there. Obviously, I mean, at least I don't know how much X consumes your life, but X Twitter, self-admittedly, despite Elon's commandeering of it, I do spend a lot of time on it. So the algorithm has mysteriously pushed a lot of these, sort of, crazy next level interactions with the Tesla robot and, sort of the Art Deco futuristic, Robo van and Robo cab prototypes. I mean, we can start with the autonomous humanoid robot because that's been getting a lot of attention for a different reason as of late. but kind of a 10-second summary there. I mean, it's a humanoid robot. Our friend Elon says it will cost $20,000 to $30,000 potentially, if it ever does come out. And it, has it more or less is human sized with impressive dexterity. I mean, the mechanics and the robotics of it are certainly impressive, and it is a small shame that it's kind of been overshadowed by sort of a curious development in the last few days. But the robots at the event, which appeared pretty uncannily human, were just that, teleoperated. According to Bloomberg reporting that came out yesterday evening, I believe. Could be Sunday evening. But a lot of the impressive interactions, with the robot bartenders and robot shopkeepers and robots just kind of walking around and interacting with guests at the event, seemed very human in nature, because they were. They were supposedly operated remotely by Tesla employees.
Well, it seemed like the voices were kind of giving it away too. I mean, because did you see that there were so many different voices for their robots?
I didn't see the variety of voice tracks.
It seemed
Although, I
yeah,
mean, to be completely honest, I mean, especially with AI voice replication, I mean, to kind of give a pulse update on that is, we're at the point where on a home desktop computer, you can build a voice model with 10 seconds of your voice in more or less sub 10 seconds and have it really say anything you want. So I can imagine they may just have, found 50 different YouTubers, and then it's like, hey, like they have a minute-long video, so we can use that to, create 100 unique voices. So I mean, I don't know how much technical prowess went into the individuality, behind them, but that is an interesting thing to note. I don't know if the voices were AI generated and they were just told to say things based on. And that's kind of another point of whether, could be something unclear where, where the voice responses artificial intelligence, whereas the teleoperation was done by humans. I mean, that part of it's a little bit unclear because obviously, that wasn't something that was, transparent. So it's, and obviously for whatever reason, right? Elon doesn't want to be the first to admit that, oh yes, they were teleoperated with AI assisted voice responses or something. It's like, so I don't know.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
they're also kind of
hard to
advertising it. It's kind of crappy because I mean they're also kind of advertising it like, hey, look at what we've got, and oh yeah, these are robots just walking around as they please. Are we supposed to expect that those were self-driving cars, or were people controlling those too, like big remote control cars remotely from a control center somewhere? So I don't know. Yeah, I don't think it helps the image. And yeah, everyone who can go look at the Bloomberg article, I think you should do that because, yeah, not good, not good. This type of news, and we've already seen. This kind of speaks to me like a little bit of a Nikola situation. I don't know if you recall what happened with Nikola.
the semi.
I mean, it's
right?
like, oh, you've got the
rolled
semi
down the
truck,
hill,
it can roll down the hill by its, but it's really just like they're faking the whole time. I mean, it's crazy. Like you can't tell people you have self-driving and self-walking robots, and then you just have people controlling them, in some control center situation. Like, come on, really? You know, that's not, is that ethical? No, that's not really ethical, you know, like really. Um, so I don't know. And it's funny we have to be saying this too, you know?
Mm.
I mean, it should go without saying,
Yep.
right? Like don't mislead people that you have even the bus. I mean, I guess so what are your impressions on that van, that Robo Von bus? What, I think they said it seats 20 people, something like that.
So I mean, it's really, I mean,
Didn't see how 20 could fit in there, but
nah, I mean, obviously it's like, I don't know. I mean, the thing is like right now
so
it's a concept. So it's something where it's like, well, it looks very, cyberpunky, and I think it was designed to make a splash. Um, our friend Elon said that we'll build it, but we don't know what it costs or when it will come out. So honestly, I mean, it's hard to be like, well, I don't have any thoughts on it because I don't even know if it's real at this point. But I mean, given what we saw, it's like, we're kind of reinventing the bus in some ways, or at least I don't, like a Mercedes Sprinter van. I mean, it obviously looks stunning. I mean, it's sort of it wows. I think, I mean, the lack of headrests for some of the seats could be an issue. Being autonomous doesn't prevent you from being rear-ended. And I guess
yeah.
only the second row seats has headrest built in for some reason. It's just very like, does it look stunning? I mean, of course it does, but it's like, I think it was designed or rendered, and I mean, to just to look exactly what it needed to look like, which was like something to just wow, for the sake of, shareholders. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
Yeah.
again, very light on the details of how this will be implemented, but it supposedly has, again, as you said, yeah, capacity for 20 people. Um, no clear windshield, more or less. It
Yeah.
kind of looks like an airport tram. And a lot of the supposed photos are just renders of the thing. I think he did have a rolling prototype at the event, but not to be too hard on Elon here, but it's like, at this point it's more of a I'll believe it when I see it type deal.
Oh yeah.
Because
Sure.
a lot of the technology was something where, we had a similar event in 2018, and more or less, I mean, even the slides were pretty similar, where, Elon made some big claims. And honestly, I mean, if we go back and take a look at, our Tesla's appreciating assets, no. Are, so a lot of this stuff is like, is still, just take it with a grain of salt. I mean, it's something where it's like, you really shouldn't be critical for the sake of being critical. And I don't want to rain on anyone's parade more than the next person. Um, but I mean, we're looking at a prototype car, and
Yeah.
whether it be Tesla, GM, Ford. I mean, Ford had a prototype, nuclear car, in the 50s, or and it's like, did that ever come to fruition? No. I mean, but it's like, so everyone makes grand promises. I think at this point we just need to really, keep our eyes peeled and try not to, let the claims or hype really from any source, um, kind of take, uh, you know, take over. versus kind of what it's one thing to believe what is said, especially in again, not to be biased against anybody, but I mean, a defense used in court for a lot of these claims, was to call them corporate puffery. So, blame Elon Musk's lawyers and not me, but that's sort of the term they use to describe, some of his previous promises. So, it's like, fool me once, fool me twice, I don't really know what to make of it. And quite honestly, we won't really know for a long time. And I think kind of Elon got the memo of avoiding giving a time frame for it, since he didn't really mention a specific release date or price
Yeah.
for it. But for that reason, it's like, well, we also don't really know when it will come out or how much it will cost, and we don't even have
It
what
seems like a lot.
So
Yeah. Oh, this seems like a lot of fluff, and I think you're absolutely right. I think it's the investors to fluff them up, get them all excited, and I don't know. I think it's clearly a robot, and it's clearly okay. Sure, maybe human controlled. Okay, great. So is it impressive what they built? Sure, yes, of course. But are they pretending like? But they're kind of being mysterious about. Oh well, is it a real robot or is it a person? Or you know what I mean? So I think it's kind of funny. Like it also strikes me. I don't know if you've been in LA or the Westwood areas. Well, just kind of everywhere here. They're honestly pretty popular. I don't know how many other cities they're in, but it reminds me when here the LA city uh people approved Uber. I think it's Postmates at the time, but Serve Robotics makes these delivery robots, and they're approved to go on the sidewalks, and they're fully autonomous. Well, there's another company that makes robots that are human controlled called Coco, and then there's another one that's automatic called Starship. So there's like three robotic delivery companies here on the sidewalk that are helping deliver people's food. And you see them all the time. There have been videos of these things all the time. But it kind of makes me, wonder, because I've always kind of thought when I see one of these things, if you visit LA and you see the sidewalks, you'll probably see one of these delivering food. You'll be like, oh, what is this thing rolling down here? And it makes you wonder, like, is it human controlled? Like, or is there a fleet operator or something? Like, and I think with Tesla and these robots, I feel like, they have the potential to be fully autonomous robots, let's say, right? But sometimes they could be taken over. That's completely understandable. But I feel like you've got to be transparent about, oh yeah, we have people in a control center that yes are taking over these robots. They're not fully just walking around. So I don't know. I feel like they're a little misleading. I feel like in some of the messaging, and um, I think they could do a better job being transparent about, oh yeah, don't worry, these robots are able to be taken over with humans. And oh yeah, we have a fleet. And another thing that strikes me a little odd. So tell me what you think of this. We've got these robo taxis. Awesome. We need them. We need less, well, not less car. I mean, I think we need less car ownership. Like, yes, of course, roads are not going anywhere, but like maybe we can utilize our roads and our spaces better. Well, $30,000 sounds like a good deal, but people aren't supposed to be buying these. So I feel like I don't think people are going to be buying these for themselves. You don't need a personal robo taxi, right? Like, so that seems like it would be like a fleet manager's sort of role. So, what do you think about the future of humans controlling fleets of robots? Like, I think that's kind of what this event was like more showing to me, like I felt like, oh yeah, well we're gonna have humans, you know, remotely, monitoring these robo taxis and these robots and these, like what do you think about the new emerging potential field of monitoring fleets of robots?
I mean, this is, sort of fleet management is a very real concept and alive and well. When it comes to managing fleets of trucks or drones or industrial equipment, I assume with robots, it's more or less the probably the same basic component with a lot more data. So I mean, I can't pretend to be qualified of knowing what or how it will differ, but I think the fundamentals will be the same in terms of having a centralized dashboard, having useful data presented to the operator, and will there even be an operator at some point? I mean, a self-managed fleet could be something, um, you know, in the near future. But I think the collection and presentation of data will remain the same in the basic sense. Now, I mean, the consumer of the data could be a robot, so maybe the presentation, instead of a web dashboard, is an API of some sort. It's presented programmatically, as opposed to, visually to a human. And whether you know how that impacts decision making, or will it be a similar, sort of, a similar overall type of, how it is managed. I think perhaps that's yet to be seen. I mean, I don't really know how it will differ if you have something managed by a machine in terms of the overall operation objective. Or, I mean, I think the objectives of fleet management would probably remain the same, um, despite the change in operator. So I think that's a really long way of saying I don't know.
Yeah.
But so
Yeah, we don't really know, that's for sure. But it will probably be in the future more of a job than it is today. So, yeah. Um Also, Tesla has insurance in a lot of states, and it makes me wonder with Tesla insurance and how that's going to work with robo taxis, because I don't know if it's bad if the car company is also the insurance company. I don't know if that's like a negative for the consumer, for the society, or it maybe they're so confident in their technology that they know that they aren't going to have accidents, and maybe it's a good thing. Obviously, you can have other things happen, but it makes you wonder, like, if they're like how Tesla is going to they're thinking about this, how they're going to monetize the ongoing uh EV in terms of, well, guess what? I mean, yeah, they already have supercharging stuff, right? But electric cars no
yeah,
longer have the service center model. So, I mean, you've heard this drill before. When you go into a dealership, they always sell you service plans and they want you to bring your car back in, and they make so much money off of people bringing their cars in for service and plans and
well,
fixing
especially when they try
cars.
and
Well,
sell you a new car, right?
yeah. Oh
It's like,
yeah.
oh,
And
you
so
need a new battery pack, right? It's like, okay, you know.
yeah. Yeah. So obviously
you
we're
know,
not really
yeah, right. You know,
yeah. Well, that's not going to be a problem with electric cars, I guess is what I'm saying. So yeah, just makes you wonder. Makes you wonder.
so I mean that's yeah, I mean that's kind of I don't know, something to think about, but because at the same, again, like at least one of the benefits that's sold um, about electric cars is, the lack of maintenance, right? These things are maintenance free. And that is a huge benefit. But if they do end up being more durable, with or without maintenance, I guess the premise of something being maintenance free is that, you know, it can run longer without preventative care. So in theory, it would be more durable and last longer. You know, Particularly Americans. It's Toyotas are reliable, right? But they do very well when you don't do basic maintenance. So they get a great reputation, and rightfully so. But it presents a conundrum if you are in the business of selling cars and you build something that's so durable, and there's a conflict of what that means as a car manufacturer. So it's, do you survive as a company, or do you produce a product that truly is durable? And that's, I think, that kind of plays into really every sort of appliance, or I mean really anything you can buy these days, where there's a trade-off between, if we truly did take the sum of our technological might and put it into a product, would it be too good? And in a lot of ways it's like, well, it would. So we're going to
Yeah.
bake in some planned obsolescence, because why not? We have to. We're not going to be able to survive. I mean, if we just made a bunch
Yeah.
of high quality product, everybody bought one, we'd be a company for 4 years, and then we'd go bankrupt, because everyone has a Tesla. It's like they last forever. You know, a million mile battery pack, right? You don't have to buy another one.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Well, yeah, technology. I mean, I think selling durable products is good. I mean, even Apple has been running into this problem where people, yeah, how do we get people to upgrade their phones? Oh my God, our phones are working so long, like wow, they work for years and years and years and years. And so I think it's, yeah, if you make a car that's so durable, and I think it's laughable, honestly, from my experience with, this type of thing, for them saying that a Tesla is going to be an appreciating asset. Like, I'm sorry, but you didn't, even on stage you could hear him talking about hardware version 3. Oh, what about V3? He's, oh well, let's not get into the technicalities here, like and so it's like,
I
just,
remember
I
that.
mean,
Yeah, somebody asked about that, and he's like, let's not get into the nuance of supporting
yeah,
5-year-old hardware, right? I mean, if your car is a computer, fundamentally as a durable machine, it's kind of antithetical, right? I mean, you upgrade your computer, probably more than you upgrade your car. So I
yeah,
mean, for these guys, that seems like an opportunity, because it's like, well, yeah, like, I mean, I drive a 12-year-old car. It still works great. You can put a CarPlay receiver in it and really just have all of the quality of life things a new car has, without, for 200-300 bucks. And it gets a lot harder when the core of your car is an FSD computer. I mean, a proprietary piece of technology that, to be honest, with everything on Elon's plate, he's not interested in selling a retrofit kit. Like, I'm sorry, but when he decides to no longer support it, that's it. I mean, good run. The car will probably still drive. I hope. I mean, you would assume, but
I think, look, it just goes to show that early supporters who kept their cars believing the promise are now being are now probably regretting their decision. It is kind of sad, that yeah, like this is the reality of the situation, and
well, and that's yeah, and that's kind of the sad thing too, where it's like if you really did believe in the company and the product and kind of what it stood for and what it meant, um, you you didn't really get rewarded for being an early adopter.
not at
Of
all.
it.
They used your data. They used your data. They didn't compensate you for it.
Yeah,
They didn't
all the camera data, all the
all
Tesla,
the
yeah, it's like
telemetry.
yeah.
And then they use your data, they use your money because your money is worth more to them in the past, when they're developing new, because you're basically the profit, excuse me, from your sale of your car goes to develop features that then you will no longer have access to. You know, it's funny how that works. And then your data will be used without your, well, I mean, of course, maybe without your permission. Well, of course, they're going to, try to coerce you into, accepting it. So yeah, it's funny. They're using your data, they're using the profits, to develop features that you're not going to have access to. And then, yeah, they're not going to support your
It's
car as soon as the new one comes out. And they come out with, oh, we're actually on this version now of self-driving. Oh, and yeah, those are the old self-driving cars. And now we've got old self-driving cars, new self-driving cars, and it's just like, oh gosh, like, you know, and yeah, basically the situation now is that the new self-driving cars are going to be fully self-driving and truly fully self-driving. But if you're on hardware version 3, good luck.
too
Good
bad.
luck.
Buy a new
You're
one.
gonna need to yep, yep. And so it's kind of crappy how that happened. But anyway, that's that. So anyway. Well, I think we covered a lot this week, and of course we're here every week. So yeah. Check in, follow us wherever you get your podcasts. We're here to talk tech. And we can't forget to mention our sponsor, Before Sunset AI. They are an amazing to-do list. You can power your day with AI and create subtasks and use AI to create very productive focus spaces. Sam, I'm sure you can relate. I think when you put on background music, you just
No,
focus.
that
And
absolutely. I mean, it crafts your environment. So chooses background music, sorts your tasks, creates your calendar. It takes a lot of the logistics out of, sort of being productive. So helps you do more and, sort
think
of
think of it like
removes
a
that
planner.
activation
Think
energy.
Absolutely. It's like a daily planner with AI. It removes that friction so you can get more stuff done, so you can focus. And yeah, sign up on their website, beforesunset.ai. Don't forget to use promo code Tech Talk Live. You'll save 25% and support the show. Check it out. Yeah, Before Sunset. Highly recommend.
Yeah, and we'll be back next Tuesday, same time, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, for some more tech news, moving at a breakneck pace. I mean, a week could be a
Every
year,
week.
depending on what happens. So,
Absolutely. Got lots to talk about. More AI developments, I'm sure. We'll be here every Tuesday. Thanks for listening.
yeah, tune in next time.